When you see this, how does Robert Mueller use this pattern? What argument does he make with it? Does he make an argument with it?
Seems to me that the argument is unmistakable, and it doesn't require a very high-powered office, even as high-powered as Robert Mueller's, in order to see it. It's there in plain view. The president is targeting individuals who have done nothing wrong. They've violated no conditions of their security, as 2 decades of past CIA directors and Republicans, along with Democrats, have said in their extraordinary letter. This is an abuse of the president's power. It's an abuse of his power he ordinarily would have because of improper motive, as Chuck says. And it's not that we have to psychoanalyze him. The motive is one that is there in plain view. Just as he said right after firing Comey that he had Russia on the mind, Russia is what it's all about. When he says that Mueller is conflicted, there is no collusion, the guy who's really conflicted is Trump. He's not in a position to be the judge in his own case. A very large majority of the American people, not just Democrats, but a majority, something like 60%, think it's important to get to the bottom of what Russia did in obvious collusion with the campaign, although whether it's conspiracy in a criminal sense or not depends on details we won't have until the Mueller probe is finished. And when the president targets a guy like Bruce Ohr and makes it clear that he has Robert Mueller himself in his sights, I think what we are witnessing is a kind of slow motion Saturday Night Massacre. He knows that the political explosion, if he just fired Mueller outright or fired Rosenstein, would be horrific. So he does it drop by drop, death by 1,000 cuts, strip security clearances from this one and that one. And it's not as though these guys have a right to have their clearances. It's not a matter of personal privilege. We, the American people, and our national security apparatus has a right to the full wisdom and advice of people in the government and who previously served, so they can be read in when their consultation is needed. So the pattern, both of collusion and obstruction, is very clear. And because the president is unlikely to be indicted, it's a pattern that will be judged ultimately by the American people when Congress speaks in various ways that it's able to speak.
What about, though, in the meantime, Chuck, the DOJ? Bruce Ohr is a DOJ employee. Are we going to hear Jeff Sessions say something about this?
What a terrific question, Katie. So my guess is no, but that breaks my heart. The Attorney General of the United States took an oath of office not to the president but to the Constitution. His job is the rule of law and the men and women who work for him at the department. Where is he? You know, you never want to hire somebody for a job who's desperate to have that job, because that means you may not have the detachment, the independence to do what needs to be done. What needs to be done here? You need to stand up for the men and women of the department, including Bruce Ohr.
So, Jennifer, we did get a letter last night, an open letter from a number of former intelligence officials, saying that what Donald Trump was doing with John Brennan, revoking his security clearance, wasn't right. That it wasn't just a violation of free speech, but that it was sending a chilling message to everybody in the intelligence community and anybody who might even think of speaking out critically against this president. It's signed by a number of officials. We can throw it up on the screen, and these are officials from bipartisan backgrounds. They're officials from Democratic presidents. They're officials from Republican presidents, going all the way back to, I believe, George H.W. Bush. Then again, Jennifer, we've been here before. There have been times in 2016 when a number of newspapers newspapers have released open letters from former intelligence officials or military officials or senior diplomats opposing the president, including one that had 50 top GOP national security officials signing a letter warning that Trump would be the most reckless president in American history. That's August 2016. What sort of effect does a letter like this have on Republicans, not on the president? I know how it's going to affect the president, on Republicans.
Well, let me start with how absolutely unprecedented is this letter. You're right, Katie. It has CIA directors going back to 1987 with Director Webster. It's an extraordinary letter because it's completely without regard to party, completely without regard to their position on Mr. Brennan. The letter clearly states that some of us have not felt it was appropriate to speak out, and we've chosen a different tack. But in one voice, these patriots, hundreds of years of experience combined, have taken a stand and voiced that this is wrong. This is, number one, an infringement on speech. It is chilling. It is, in my view, obstruction, because it is with a deliberate, completely revealed intent to chill the investigation, to disrupt the investigation, to prevent people from coming forward. But it is also harmful to U.S. security. One of the reasons we give former officials security clearances or allow them to retain them is because they come in for consultation. They give their good advice. They are a resource for the government. They don't get it because it's a favor to them. It's a favor to us, the American people. And this president is now acting in ways that are inimical to the Constitution and to national security. And this, as I learned from my Professor Tribe, is the difference between a criminal charge, perhaps, and a high crime or misdemeanor. You don't have to have committed a crime to be impeached. You have to have behaved in ways, the Constitution essentially leaves it up to a high crime and a misdemeanor. Isn't an ongoing assault on the First Amendment a high crime or misdemeanor? I think so. Is a pattern of behavior that includes interfering with the operation of the Justice Department in a situation involving your own case a high crime or misdemeanor? I would think so. The problem, of course, is that we have a Congress that is utterly irresponsible, utterly without shame. And the Republicans, Trump was right. He could stand out on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and they wouldn't do anything. So the first question is, will the American people change that equation, at least with respect to the House in November? And then the question becomes, even if the House changes, it's going to be awfully hard to impeach someone unless there's damning evidence and remove them by a Senate because of that two-thirds requirement.
Let me pick up on that one point and get the last word from Lawrence. How damning does the evidence from Robert Mueller need to be? And do you think that he is on something of a stopwatch right now, that there is a limited amount of time for him to come out with this report and still maintain public confidence? Do you think that's eroding with all the president's attacks?
The president's attacks are certainly taking a toll, but I think fundamentally putting a stopwatch on this kind of investigation is against the interests of all of us, of the United States. We need to know, whether it's Trump or somebody else, we need to know how to protect our country from this kind of collusion with an adverse foreign power. And if it takes until some point in 2019 to figure that out, so be it. Certainly we know there's been collusion, as Brennan said in that remarkable op-ed. What we don't know is
hold on. You say we know there's been collusion. I think there are those out there who would argue that we do not know that.
Well, what I think they mean is we don't know exactly what responsibility the president had for actually conspiring in a criminal way with Russians. But as Jen says, you don't need criminal conspiracy. What you need is abuse of power. And it is an abuse of power of the first order to cooperate with a foreign adversary to seize the presidency of the United States and then to make it hard for the American people to discover exactly who did what and how best to stop it. That is the fundamental issue, and it's an issue that goes to the free speech rights of those the president attacks and the national security of this country. Nothing could be more serious.
Lawrence Tribe, thank you very much for joining us. Jennifer Rubin, thank you as well.
Jen.
Chuck Rosenberg,
Thanks,
thank
Katie.
you. And Jeff Bennett, we appreciate it.